Hello, everyone. Welcome to Self Love You. This is Jenna Ryan, and I'm here for today's podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about guarding your heart, how to not be so open, how to protect yourself, and guard your heart, guard your emotions, guard your energy, guard your time, guard your truth, protect yourself. That's what we're going to talk about. Welcome to the channel. I am Jenna Ryan. I am a self-love life coach here, and I've been on the channel for about 10 years talking about self-love, and I just love this topic because I've been able to grow and heal from being a codependent person to being a more independent person or interdependent person. And as I've done this, I have shared my progress and my process, and different people love it. I have listeners from all across the world who listen to the channel, and all different ages, all different races, all different backgrounds, from young ladies to doctors, lawyers, business people, to people who live in the suburbs in New York City, in California, in Florida, all across America. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that I've been able to be here and help people in their process. And I really appreciate you guys for listening and coming back. So I'm trying to do a podcast once per day, just kind of ramping up. I have a lot of things to say that have been rolling around in my brain for a long, long time, especially this topic today about guarding your heart. Guarding your heart is a very important thing to do. And it's something that if you have codependent tendencies or trauma in your background, you may not know how to properly, adequately, accurately protect your heart and guard your heart. This can show up in myriad ways. It's not just it can show up in a lot of ways, and we're going to talk about those ways today. So, guarding your heart, it is a Bible verse. It's Proverbs 4:23. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. So that is a good bit of wisdom, guarding your heart. However, it means a lot of things. It can mean guard your heart spiritually, but I'm talking about guarding your heart emotionally, guarding your energy, your life force, guarding yourself. Because if you are a codependent person, you may tend to be too open and too available and too willing to share deep things about yourself that are not appropriate to share. And Lord knows, even though I've known to guard your heart, and I've really thought hard and long about guarding your heart, and I've always taken steps to guard my heart every day that I can, and kind of learning backwards. Sometimes I have been way too open and shared way too much, say on social media or with certain people, just the media in and of itself. It's so important now more than ever in today's day and age to really guard your heart, and that is to guard your energy. So it's also to guard your love, your romance. You know, I know a lot of people that listen to the channel have love addiction, and where you might fall in love easily with someone else or fall in love with the wrong people and really feel trapped, like you're addicted and really can't get out of that love. And you have a lot of unrequited love, or you're not being reciprocated. Love is not being reciprocated, or you are obsessed or longing or having limerence, or really your heart you're not in control of it. Instead of you being in control of your heart is running the show. And that's like your emotions, your inner child, that part of you that's very needy and needs love. And instead of protecting and guarding it, you're more trained to just give it all away and just try whichever way you can to cope and get your needs met even if it means sacrificing your own personal protection. So that's really what I want to get into today. And years ago, I thought about it because I would have, it was about 14 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. And I had a tendency where my heart would run the show, and I would end up liking someone that wasn't good for me. And I just could not stop. I couldn't stop myself. It's like my heart, I had a runaway heart. It would just run away. It would just go and do its own thing. It would ignore red flags. It went head first. I went head first. I was like a wrecking ball, right? Like Miley Cyrus sings about the wrecking ball. I was just full speed ahead. I had no control over my emotions, who I fell in love with. I bought into the whole romance concept that you hear in love songs that, you take my breath away. And I really just would not have any kind of self-control or discipline over my ability or over my inability, over just my love muscle, whatever that is, that love where I would just love too much. I would just fall so head over heels in love. And so I remember thinking that I was walking one day and I thought, I need to put my heart on a leash. Okay, if you have a dog, you have to have a dog on a leash because the dog could get into trouble. And, anything could happen to the dog. So if you want to protect your little doggy, you put it on a leash. I've learned that the hard way. You have to protect your animals because an animal doesn't know the dangers that are out there and literally just goes full force ahead, full steam ahead, and doesn't know, doesn't think, doesn't have the intelligence to know all of the dangers that are out there. That's one of the reasons why dogs are so beautiful and dogs are so innocent, is they don't know everything that we know. That's why children are so innocent, because they lack that developed cerebral cortex that's mature and is able to see and plan and see pitfalls up ahead. That's really what you have to develop if it's not developed within you. You may be at a position where you have to develop that upper level intelligence. It's in there. You just have to develop it. You have to build neural pathways. You have to tap into the neuroscience of your brain to develop neural pathways to unlock your cognitive functioning for planning and considering all the different pitfalls and all the different things that could happen and how to slow down and decide to feel rather than just feeling without your brain. So when I say guard your heart, I mean that. I'm talking about guarding your heart romantically, where you're not just allowing yourself to just roam freely. Your inner child is just not just running the day, but you're actually managing the romance process, managing your level of giving and loving in a mature way rather than an abandoned way, a self-abandoned way. Allowing or having enough self-discipline and self-control and presence of self where you can look at red flags, you can move yourself back, you can distance, you can do all kinds of fun things and skillful things to make better decisions for yourself in the future to protect your heart from pain, from abuse, and from falling for the wrong person. So that's very important that you guard your heart. Another analogy that I thought of while I was learning this process, and I'm always learning this, is also to think of your heart like precious jewels. So if your heart is a precious jewel, let's say you have, you're Kim Kardashian and you are in the hotel and you have precious jewels, you're going to have a security guard outside the door. You're going to have a security guard. If you have precious jewels inside a hotel room, you're going to need a security guard. If you have, a museum, you're going to need cameras. You're going to need an alarm system. You're going to need a watchman. You're going to need somebody that's looking out, that's checking out, that's guarding and protecting that which is you, and you are the precious jewel. So you have to develop a part of yourself that may not be there. You have to learn to develop different aspects of yourself that are there once you tap into them. So you have to develop a level of oversight to your heart. You have to oversee what is going on and begin to analyze the environment that you are in, the emotional environment, the relational environment, and begin to take action based upon the circumstance. So a lot of times you hear I've taken some self-defense courses recently, and it's all about situational awareness. We don't really think, that anything's going to happen. So we just kind of go about our day, and we're not really aware, and we're not aware that there could be danger lurking around the corner. And we don't really want to live that way, especially as females. I feel like as a female, we were more taught to be nurturing, whereas the males are more taught to be the protector, and they're the ones that are supposed to be, they've got the testosterone and they're looking out for the women. However, if you're single and you're out there and you're trying to make decisions, you really have to have that executive functioning. You've got to have that inner protector, especially today, because it's getting worse every day. There's more and more harm that can befall you emotionally, and that can take away your energy and your life force and all that is good about you. So it's very important that you have an awareness that you deserve, you need to be protected, that you need protection. And no one is going to be able to protect the precious jewels that are you. You are in charge of your own internal experience. And you get to make decisions on who you let in and who you keep out. And that is another aspect of guarding your heart. Your heart has so many layers. And there's so many layers to you. And there's so many layers to the people who can get close to you. And there's people that are far away, that are not close to you, that know you, that you like. And there can be some enemies out there. And there can be some frenemies out there. And then as you have the circles, if you've ever noticed a diagram of the friendship circles, where, you have people that are closer to you, and there's circles, and as people they get closer to you, and as you develop intimacy with others, they can get in closer to you, and you can share more aspects of yourself. As you're developing, as you're creating yourself, as you're building yourself and building your boundaries of who you are and discovering who you are, you have to be careful with these different levels, these circles. You've got to keep acquaintances out there. People that are unproven do not need to be in your deepest inner circle. And so you have to begin to practice keeping those people out there, and then also having really flexible boundaries to also let people in. So you have to be able to be vulnerable, but vulnerable with safe people. And that's all about guarding your heart, protecting yourself from manipulation, abuse, and all the things that we deal with on this channel. So what I want to talk about is setting your guard, guarding your heart, putting the security guard at the door of yourself, and really starting to pay attention. What happens in relationships whenever you are codependent and you suffer from that is that you don't have a clue on what is yours and what is someone else's. A lot of us, or me included, at one point, I didn't even know I had worth. I didn't know what my rights were. I didn't know that I had any power. I just did not know. And every day I learn. I've had to learn through hard knocks. Like you knock your head against a wall and then you just don't hit that wall anymore, or you try not to. And so you really have to learn how to set an intention for self-protection without putting up walls and being so guarded and so isolated that you don't let anyone in. So it's a beautiful process of learning to be, while also guarding your heart and protecting yourself, and making decisions from an executive place, from the planning and processor, rather than just running wild with your heart. This is a process, learned behavior. You can learn it. It is not easy, but every day as you heal, you can become better and better. And as you learn, you can become better and better. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to be very rigid and say, okay, here are my rules, here are my standards. Not sometimes, it's always good to have standards and rules. Like, I know that if this person displays that they do not have my values and they don't operate with the same moral code, values, value system, then I can't trust that person, because that person, doesn't have any problems lying, or, whatever it is that you have set as a standard for yourself, because you have the right to decide for yourself what is okay for you. So you get to choose your standards. And so for me, I have my values and my morals and the things that are important to me. And so I know right away if someone is, let's just say, there's this one video of this guy on YouTube that was so helpful. He was talking about colluding with being ignored. Okay. It was super good. If y'all can think of his name, please put it in the comments below. But he talks about colluding. He talks about attachment trauma and colluding with being ignored, and how he refuses to collude with being ignored, and people that are not going to hear him and not going to see him and not going to treat him as if he exists and, be validating and encouraging or whatever, then he knows for a fact he's not down for that. He's not down for that. He's not going forward with that. And I would second that motion. I agree. So I have that same rule. Like, if I am going to allow someone into my life to a close degree, someone that I'm going to talk to, and not, the deepest depths, which is, your husband, your wife, God, that's your deepest intimacy. But even getting closer to me, a person has to have my minimum standards of respect and allowing me to exist, and I allow them to exist. And so that's like a rigid thing. It's like, no, you cannot get past this. Or let's say if someone if they've treated me in a narcissistic way and they've used me, or they've cheated on me, or done something to me, then that is a rule that I have. You're going to go in the outer edge. Does that mean I hate you? No. Does that mean you can never get in? Probably, because I have such a negative opinion of being able to change someone's character. Once someone's character is so embedded, unless they've done some really serious work on themselves, they're probably going to stay that way. So the chances of them changing those deep character flaws is going to be difficult. However, there's always room for improvement. And if someone improves and I feel that they're trying, then they can get a little bit closer. But you just want to guard who gets in through these gates. Let's call them gates. So there's circles and there's a gate that's, closed off to people that don't meet the minimum standards. And then you can come in a little closer if you do. It's just this beautiful aspect of analyzing the people in your life, or, even if it's a job. I mean, you've just got to have minimum standards of what you will tolerate and what can come close to you. Because we know that when you're vulnerable and you're close to someone and you're letting someone in, speaking into your life, and you're sharing your hopes and dreams and flaws and all of that stuff, and you're getting your needs met and things like that. We know that that's a beautiful place, but that person can hurt you. They have power to hurt you. And if someone has power to hurt you, you've handed them that power. You've let them in. And so you want to make sure that the people who are close enough to hurt you are vetted. Okay? They have to be vetted. You have to figure out you have to make sure that the people that you let close to you are not going to just terrorize your heart. And a lot of my listeners have terrorized hearts, and you have abuses that you've gone through and relationships that are harming you and no ability to stop what's going on. So this is about stopping it, or being cognizant that I need to stop this. I need to begin to see myself as valuable and begin to use my brain and my resources wherever they are, whether it's to take an assertiveness course, or take a Toastmasters to learn to be more assertive in your speaking, or to take cognitive behavioral therapy, or whatever you need to do, role play with a therapist, whatever, go take a boxing class, go take kickboxing, karate, whatever kind of body movements you can do that will help you to really begin to stand up for yourself and push things away that are not good for you, and using your body as kind of like building that muscle of hi-ya, no, hi-ya, yeah, ha. Do you get it? Can you see me? I'm doing a karate chop. So keeping that out there, you stay out there and you're not coming in. And then if someone who is closer to you ends up violating your boundaries or violating your anything, then they get kicked out. And it's beautiful when you come to a place where you have the power to do that. When you have the wherewithal, when you're rooted, when you're grounded, and you know who you are, and you know who they are, and you know the separateness of it, then you can say you got to go. And then your love muscle can turn off. That faucet of love that you once just poured out to whomever, even whether they were good for you or not, you learn to turn that off. And it takes visualization, journaling, whatever it takes to learn to turn that off. You got to do it. And so it's really about, another thing is, whenever you grow up in a codependent fashion, you really are taught that you don't have any rights, that you don't know what you're doing, that you are invalidated, you are invalid, unlovable, whatever. And so you don't realize that you do have rights and you do have a job. There's a job. There's like a position called protecting yourself position. You're your own security guard, and you have to be aware and diligent to protect yourself. And you have the right to do this. And I was just so awakened when I first started realizing that, wow, I have this, I can stop this. I don't have to put up with this. You mean I can walk away from this? It was such a liberating experience to know that I did have the power and that I could do it and I had a right to do it. That was the first thing I had to realize to stop all the madness. I had to stop myself from being hurt by people. And I had to stop myself from just falling in love and just running away with the wrong people. And so I had to learn that I have a right. You have a right, my friend, if you're listening. Whoever, you have a right. You have a right to ask questions. That's something that's so interesting. We have a right to ask questions of others. And we have a right to notice lies. For so long, I was just kind of under the notion that I had to believe everything that someone told me, that I really didn't have the right. I didn't have any practice at calling out lies. You don't want to make anybody mad. Everything's going good. So they lied, and you pretend like you don't see it. And then I had to realize that we have the right to notice lies. We have the right to notice mistreatment. We have the right to make corrections if we see it and make requests. And also, if it's harmful to us, we have the duty to make demands and take action to protect ourselves and support ourselves and get ourselves support. So we have to do due diligence. We have to be vigilant. We have to watch out who we let in our lives. And this is on multiple levels. This is on day to day. This is on, I could go on and on. But the fact is that you have to have due diligence. You have to check people out. When you're meeting with someone, if you're on a date, or if you're meeting a new friend or new business partner, that's kind of a good way to think of it. In business, when you go to purchase a home, the buyer and the seller, they write a contract. And there's no contracts in the emotional world. There's no courts. There's none of that. So all the more do we have to be diligent and do our due diligence. Because there's no court, there's no recourse. The only recourse is you get what you get if you allow it. And so you really have to be careful who you let in without being a freak. It's like this happy balance of, okay, and getting up and trying again and not closing down and keeping your love alive and keeping the ability to love alive. Never shutting that down, maybe for a little bit as you're healing, but always being ready to get up and try again. So due diligence. We have the right to ask questions. In fact, that's what we are supposed to be doing. I find that as a recovering codependent, sometimes it has become so wonderful to find someone who's fabulous and who will listen and who's back and forth and providing those wonderful, dopamine hits that come with relationship. And you're just so needy. You need that so much that you overlook things and you don't have the guards and protections in place, and you overtrust. You overtrust who you're with or who you're involved with, and you give way too much. Or you give away your passwords. You don't ask any questions because you're so busy getting your needs met and so excited about this finally presenting itself to you that you're focused on yourself. Okay. And that has been me, is that, I'm so focused. I'm so excited that I'm loving this so much. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to stop this flow with actually having to be skeptical, because being skeptical takes a whole different energy. It's like a masculine energy that you have to incorporate. And I would prefer just to love everybody and trust everybody and be open and share. But if you do that, it's very dangerous and it's harmful. So you have to be guarded and skeptical and very methodical and careful and calculated. I'm not saying become manipulative and calculated, but you have to have some calculations. You have to do the math. If you're getting all these red flags, no matter what happens, you're always going to get the same results. You have to begin to take action on when you see red flags. And part of this involves, which I found, is doing your due diligence. So I remember years ago, there was a catfish. There was this guy who came on really strong, and I wasn't, really wanting someone in my life at the time, and he just acted like he was all of that. And he created on Facebook this whole persona. And then he had this other guy that he was pretending to be. He was pretending, and then he pretended to be this other girl. And he created this whole entire fantasy world for me to have a great time in. It was not fun at the end, but he had a website created for his company where he lived. And then it was really set up. It was really in-depth deception. And I remember wanting to talk to him. I was like, oh, well, we should talk on the video. And he wouldn't do it. And this was right when video was just becoming real normal. He wouldn't do it. And I would make excuses like, oh, well, da-da-da-da. I mean, I kind of really made a lot of excuses. But he was in my face every day talking to me. And it was like really draining me. It was like adrenal failure because I couldn't even blow dry my hair without him pinging on Skype. Years ago. I'll never forget that. And I learned that, if somebody, just look out, make sure that people do video. You've got to if somebody won't do a video, there's a reason. So that was a long time ago. And I still learn to this day, whenever people present themselves as one way and then end up being not that. So I have to be more careful in who I allow in because I know I'm vulnerable and I have needs as a person and I want to be loved and I want friendship and relationship, but I can't want that so much that I allow it to override my judgment. So you have to make sure you are in control using your sense of judgment and you are asking questions. And you feel comfortable asking questions and so when you are, involved with someone, getting involved, things are unfolding. Remember that people do unfold. They don't just show all of their cards all at once. And so you have to make sure that you give it plenty of time and space so that you can really get to know who it is you're sharing with. And you have to be careful. Even though you really need a friend and even though you really need to share about this situation or whatever, you have to hold back because they may not be trustworthy and they haven't proven yet that they can be trusted with your passwords, right? Or that they can be trusted with your, private info. So someone that hasn't gone through the seasons that you haven't really checked out, you want to check out how is a person when they're angry? How do they behave? Sure, they're really sweet and nice most of the time, but if I were to, say, I'm not interested in this, what are they going to do? Are they going to respect me? Are they going to respect your boundaries? Are they going to go off on a, rage? How are they going to behave in different scenarios? So you have to guard your heart with people until you find out for sure, as good as you can. I mean, you can never do it all the way, but as much as possible. And you get better at this as you go, that they are going to be safe for you and they're going to take care of you and they're going to protect you and never betray you or never, share your passwords with the world. You have to be careful. And especially I've learned this since, my stint in the media, just a lot of people who, maybe I confided in suddenly going and sharing things about me to the media. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. I was just needing to talk to someone and I talked to the wrong person. I didn't even realize it. And I was going through a lot, and look at them. They're now in the paper and they're talking about me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have made them sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, which is what I have to do now, because now that my name is out there, I have to, before I share with someone, I really have to do an NDA, big time, because I don't want people going to the media about me. So it's kind of like you have to have your own. I mean, who would have thought that I would need that? I would have never dreamed, but it happened. And so I have to be even more careful than ever in who I let around me and who I share with. And sometimes if you're just going through it and, the stuff is hitting the fan and there's nothing you can do and you just got to talk to whomever, sometimes what else are you going to do? You got to do what you got to do and then take the hits at the end of the day. But if you're in a safe place and you're able to make really good judgments and good decisions and everything's not crazy and frantic, then you can be more particular and take more time and just really watch out who you share your business with, who you text, who you are texting. I was working with a lady who is in Hollywood, a very famous woman, or a woman who's connected to very, very famous people you would know. And in the Hollywood realms that we were talking about, this documentary that they wanted me in, and in the Hollywood realms, they don't put things in writing. They don't text. If they want to say something, they call. You can do a conference call. You can do but they're not going to text it or email it, because I guess they're so used to the sabotage of, people who want to know all their business and these people also can be damaged so much if certain things get out, that they have to be very guarded with their personal information. And so that's really how you have to be today because of the social media realm and just because of everyday life. You can't be needy and try to get your needs met from the wrong person, because the wrong person may go and share all your private information with the wrong people, or with people that it's just hurtful. And there's no sense in hurting if you can protect yourself in advance. And if you can begin to see these different circles and gates and put people in their position, and that might mean that you have to forego sharing something you really want to share with somebody that seems like they may be a good person to share it with because you don't know them well enough yet, and having the self-control to say, okay, I'm going to hold this piece of information. I really want to share it right now, but I don't know this person well enough. I wish I did, but I don't. So I'm going to protect myself and not put it out there so that it cannot be used later to harm me. And that person can't say, oh, I know, Jenna Ryan and blah, blah. She said this, that, and the other. Well, shoot. You have to guard your heart. You have to use due diligence. You have to look people up. You have to check their background. Don't be afraid when you're talking with people, when you're meeting new people. It feels really good to get your needs met in a relationship and in communication. I love it. I love talking to people. It feels so fabulous. But you cannot forget that you also need to have a little bit of an agenda. And yeah, you have a right to have an agenda. You're a valuable resource. You're a valuable person. And so you need to make sure you've got that upper security guard that is checking stuff out. Okay? Just like in my home, I have all sorts of protection, layers of protection. And, people do not want to mess with me because they would not like it. So my heart, your emotions, we have to make sure that there are some layers of protection. You got to have the lights, the cameras, the alarms, whatever it takes to make sure that your physical body is protected. And part of your protective system in the emotional realm is asking questions. And you have a right. I've said this many times on this audio, on this podcast. You have a right to ask questions that will help you to secure yourself in the future. You have the right to ask someone to sign an NDA. You may not need that, but I have the right, right? You have to be skeptical. And don't just be so trusting. You can't just have blind trust. That's like one of the characteristics of someone who will most likely fall for a psychopath, is someone who has just blind trust. Just trusts everybody. Here's my password. You're my new boyfriend. We've been together 6 months. Here's all my passwords. Don't do that. I learned the hard way. Your objective is to get to know people better. So more than sharing and getting, you want to share, you can be fabulous. But before you let people too close and know you too well, then you have to be able to start asking questions and getting to know people. And you want to know, in today's day and age, you've got people that are just online and they have a fake username. And then you might talk to them on the phone and you're knee deep in a really deep conversation. You don't even know what their last name is. Okay, that can happen. We need to know each other's names. If you're going to talk to somebody, you need to know what they look like. You need to know who they are. You need to know their name. You need to know if if you're dating someone, you need to know, as soon as possible, you need to see their house if you're having any kind of in-depth relationship. You don't just get exclusive with someone if you haven't, met their family, their friends, seen their home. You need to be sleuthing. You need to be diligent, because these are important things that may not matter. They may not matter now. They may not seem like they matter. You may feel intrusive, but they could become important. And you have to think about what could happen instead of, oh, nothing's going to happen. Everything is great. I'm finally in love. Oh, yay. This feels so good. No, you have to think, okay, ground myself. Okay, what could happen? What could happen if I don't know, these very vital things like date of birth? If you're with somebody, you need their birthday, their parents, their family. You need to know, you don't just talk to someone on a Google phone. If someone won't give you their phone number and they're talking to you on a Google phone, that would be a red flag. I would want to know what's their real phone number. That's how picky I am. I want phone numbers. I want to see if we're going to be talking at any depth. Then I want to see their face. I want to know what they look like. And if somebody doesn't want to share these aspects of themselves and they just want to give a sliver, and they don't want, if they have a problem with, you don't act like an interrogator. You're like, hi, what's your name? What's your driver license number? What's your car license? If you did that, you would sound weird. It has to be very classy. It has to be very woven into the conversation, but remembering that you have a job to do. Yes, you want to get your needs met and you want to be loved and you enjoy romance and you like nice dinners and you like that whole, I don't have to think, I can just merge with the other person's ego and we can just merge egos and we don't even have to think about all these negative things I don't really want to think about. But you can't do that. You have to keep your wits about you and guard your heart and guard, who am I talking to? Who am I talking to? Who are they? What are they about? What are their values? What could happen if, let's say I gave them my password. I'm just using that as an example. I gave them my password. What if they got mad at me? What could they do with my password? How do they act when they're mad? I don't even know. So you have to kind of really protect yourself, protect your information, and be skeptical until the person that you are communicating with unfolds and over time, if they're healthy, they will unfold and you'll get the information that you need. And then little by little, you share a little more and a little more, and you really learn to control what you're releasing to others, so that you're protecting and guarding your vital information and your vulnerable part of yourself, and keeping people at arm's length unless they will let you know them too. So if they want to get in and get to know you, then you have to get to know them. And you have things, not only do you notice lies, you have the right to notice lies. You get to notice lies and you get to call them out and you get to say something about them. Not only do you get to have boundaries, but you get to ask questions. You get to ask questions and find out about that person. Yes, you're interested in that person. So this is a little more than, back and forth banter. Whenever you're talking to someone, you love back and forth. You love hearing about them and they love hearing about you, and it's just really rocking and rolling. But you want to remember that you need more. You need to know who they are, because there's a lot of people out there that are fake, or that have intentions that you would not imagine, and they come across as if they're so sweet and nice and like they're going to, always be that way, but then come to find out you're dealing with something much more sinister and you didn't even know it, and you have no information that you need. And that's a dangerous place to be. Not only, it's not necessarily physically dangerous, but it just feels strange if you haven't done your homework and really just have a requirement that if someone wants to get close to you, you have to know them. They have to allow you to ask questions. They have to allow you to, I have someone that counsels me, and, it's like I have to back up what I say. My stories are like crazy tales. You should hear my stories about my life. It's crazy. Like, I've gone through some crazy stuff in 2021. You would probably think that this person is just crazy if you heard my stories. So I always have to come back with, and I've got this information, I've got this documentation. I have to show documentation for what I say. And I don't mind doing that. I'm an open book. That's, part of the problem. Just kidding. Well, yeah, it is. Yes, I am very open and I share, and I believe that you have to prove what you're saying. So we also have to expect that of others. Okay, if other people tell us this, that, and the other, you just kind of check it. Just check things. Just look people up. Don't just look at their Instagram. Don't just look at their profile photos. Don't just look at their website. But dig a little deeper into who they are and listen with your heart and take extra measures of precaution. And, remember that you don't have a contract in place. This is not a business arrangement, but it is your heart. And your heart is valuable, and you are a valuable jewel, and you are going to protect who gets access to the inner parts of you, to your world. Because your world is bad to the bone. It's fabulous. And you're just so great, okay? You are great. And I want you to know that. And you want to ask questions. You want to know who that person is. Where are they going? This is part of being in an equal, fabulous, amazing relationship and taking good care of your heart. Guard your heart. That is it. I am Jenna Ryan, your self-love life coach. If you understand what I'm talking about, if you've had issues with this, if you want me to expound on anything further, please leave me a comment below. Or even if you just want to say, hey, I would love to hear from you. I'm watching it. I'm doing this every day. Until next time, this is Jenna Ryan, and I will talk to you soon.